All right, I'm off mute. I'm mute. Excuse me, muting. Go for it.
Okay. All right. It is 10 o'clock and we are recording and for the on-demand library. Welcome, Terry, Heather, and Nan. This will be recorded and available for viewing on remaxdistinctive.com. And I believe Raymond will be forwarding the recording as well to those who missed it. So we're going to have a short discussion, a short presentation. We'll discuss the findings of it and where things may have gone wrong, where things could have gone better, and we'll talk about the implications of all of this. All right, so this is misrepresentation, and it's on the omission and failing to provide reasonable assistance to a client. Follow the contract. This case study highlights the importance of agents hired by clients to follow the terms of the contract when there is a contract with addendums or amendments to the terms and contract, whatever they may need to be followed closely. The Virginia Real Estate Board case illustrates this, even if no actual damages may have occurred. All right, Robert Bender was issued a real estate salesperson license, and he was with World Renowned Realty LLC. November 11th, 21, buyer and seller entered into a contract for sale of the property. Mr. Bender was both the selling agent and the listing agent, so he was in dual agency with the proper disclosures to both parties. The investigation the subject property sale was contingent upon a home inspection per the contract. The buyer's agents performed a home inspection on the property November 17, 21. The parties then entered into a property inspection contingency removal addendum in which the seller agreed to repair the damages identified in the home inspection report. There apparently were further repairs that could not be done before settlement, and a quote ordered which totaled $9,000. After settlement, Mr. Bender gave the buyer a check for $9,000. So that was after settlement. The buyer questioned Mr. Bender as to why this was not provided for at settlement. In addition, at settlement, Mr. Bender stated that he preferred to provide the checks for the repairs after settlements. So that sounds to me a little suspicious. In addition, Mr. Bender asserted that the seller and him agreed to this and to the $9,000 amount to be provided to the buyer after settlement. The buyer then questioned why none of this was in writing. So again, that last sentence is important there as well. If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. Prior to pardon me, we're back. Sorry, I think I had a technical error there. At some point, the repairs were made. Let me go back. Yeah, at some point, the repairs were made. However, it was unclear who actually performed some of the repairs to all the parties. I guess we skipped a sentence here. Prior to settlement, Mr. Bender and the buyer toured the property to list deficiencies during the negotiations for repairs. Mr. Bender suggested to the buyer to use Seen It LLC to provide the quote and do the repairs. The home inspection addendum required that a licensed contractor perform the work. Seen It LLC is not a licensed contractor. As was discovered during the investigation, Mr. Bender asserted that a lot of licensees use Seen It LLC regardless. At some point, the repairs were made. However, it was unclear who actually performed it. The board determined that Mr. Bender failed to provide reasonable assistance to his client. So let's think about to whom he was failing to provide that reasonable assistance to, because he had two clients here, and he had failed to provide reasonable assistance to the buyer, to the seller, in both cases, because both of the clients had liabilities that were exposed as a result of his actions. The seller's contractual obligations to have licensed professionals perform the PIC repairs. Also, they determined that his actions constituted misrepresentation or omission or both, given the statutes. And those references there are the statutory laws that he has potentially violated. Mr. Bender was fined $2,000 total and was placed on probation for 12 months and required to complete 6 classroom hours of board-approved continuing education. So where do we think that where do we think that things went wrong here? Does anybody have any thoughts or comments on this?
I do, but I'm trying to put them together. Well, communication, first of all, and that agent needed to step up his game. I mean, you've got this contract, you've got to perform, and he didn't perform for either side. So yeah, should have been fined.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
And even
he did not follow the contract. I mean, first
Exactly.
and foremost, the $9,000 should have been on the settlement statement. And if you're going to give a $9,000 credit, he should have just easily done an addendum saying seller to credit buyer. Why he didn't do that on a separate addendum outside of the actual home inspection, that would have satiated the lender because the lender would have seen it. I mean, so yeah, just dropped the ball.
And I think that's part of the key too. He wanted to do it after settlement because he didn't want to let the lender know. And so he didn't want to let the lender know that there were outstanding repairs. And we know that that's illegal, right? If anything that's going to be paid after settlement or paid under the table or not appearing on the settlement statement is going to be an illegal, that's going to be that's potential mortgage fraud. So, that's another issue there. Anybody else have any other thoughts on this?
I was just gonna say also that agent should have been, as things were being repaired, get the invoices, figure out who the contractors are. You know, you could nip it in the bud early on too, that things weren't, and because he might have said you need, licensed contractors. And so, I mean, there was a lot of balls being dropped there.
Yep, certainly were. And
what they just followed the contract, it wouldn't have been an issue. I mean, it says it on the home inspection addendum that unless otherwise stated, must be performed by a licensed contractor. So
exactly.
I mean,
but the agent might have told the seller that, and the seller didn't do it. So the agent might not have known they weren't licensed. That's why you get invoices and figure out who these contractors are.
In the narrative, it talks about his discussion where the buyer, where the agent told the buyer to get to use this company.
Oh, the buyer hired them.
Yeah, well, he was telling the buyer to hire them to do the work after the fact, whereas the contract called for it to be done prior to settlement. And so if he had been properly representing his buyer as well, what do you think should have happened? If it hadn't been done, if the work hadn't been done, the seller was willing to use, this fly-by-night contractor, but the work hadn't been done, today's the day of settlement. Do you think that repair, a $9,000 repair, is a material fact in the transaction?
Yes.
Right. So if I were the buyer, I would have not settled, not be willing to accept that because it was a material fact and it was a substantial material fact, right? So I would have not settled because technically the seller was in default, and that's what should have happened. But this is kind of where the dance that we have to play when we're in dual agency. So this raises a lot of little questions, right? And any kind of final closing thoughts from anybody? Mr. Reamer, you got any thoughts on that?
Sorry, I was trying to go off mute. No, sir.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, and we will catch you on the next round.
Thank you, Daniel.
Good. Thanks. Have a good one.
Take
Have a good
care.
weekend. All right,
You
bye-bye.
bet. Bye.